All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Antonio, and join with me, I got two very special dope guests with me in the house. This first guy, you've seen it. This dude produces 4 shows in the LA area. He's a staff writer at Adult Swim, and he has a special and album coming up next summer. Give it up for Barry Keith Coe Jr.
Hey.
Yo, what's up, bro?
Should we have clapped? I feel weird.
Yeah,
it was
it's
a
weird, right?
You hyped up that intro. I got excited, and I was like, "There's no sound."
I gave the show intro. I was like, you know what, the live show intro, bro. And that voice is another dope guest. Entre Nos, which is on HBO Go. He has a new special coming out November 1st.
Yes, sir.
I thought Barry was doing whippets right now in the corner. Please give it up for Erik Rivera.
I hope they're clapping.
Yeah. If you're not clapping in your car, bro, that's the point. What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Well, good, man.
Coming
good.
to K-Town. They're doing some construction next door. Hopefully we don't hear it, but it's always weird. I feel like this is like a random like Foot Locker in the city. Like it's just a sweaty little sweatshop that we do.
It's like LA's armpit, Koreatown.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I did a podcast here, I thought I was being scammed. Like, because I'm
Yeah.
walking around like, there's no studio here. I'm going to get robbed.
It's the finest studio next to a hair salon. And next door, they used to do income tax and baby clothes. So that was the store.
Nice.
So,
Oh, wow.
Hey, jack of all trades. So you guys are two wonderful comedians. I'm big fans of both of you guys.
Hey.
Thanks, man.
It's funny, Eric. Like, it's one of those things. I feel like it's a very LA thing to see somebody everywhere, but then never
Right.
meet them.
Right.
So I used to. It's like you and like Jesus Trejo. I used to see on like every flyer,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, randomly, we meet here at the studio. Like one day.
LA's too spread out. That's the problem. Like, I'm originally
agree.
from New York, so you always bump into people because every spot's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes apart. And in LA, you do the store, and then you run off to the ice house. That could be 2 hours.
Yeah. Do you find it's hard? Well, obviously, it's harder over here to stack up on spots and stuff. But
Yeah.
Do you feel like once you get, how often do you double up and triple up on shows?
It's not as often as I'd like, but it's part of the game. There's not as many clubs here as there are, like in New York. For instance. So it's harder to stack up. And then there's so many the talent pool here. There's so many people and there's not enough spots, so it's harder to.
Yeah.
Who you gonna knock off at the store? You gonna knock off Rogan?
exactly.
David Spade? Like, who you gonna knock off?
Exactly. I used to have this chick who would ask to be on my shows, like just
Right.
back when I was booking, and I would give her the lineup and be like, okay, who do I kick off? Do I kick off Kurt Metzger?
Yeah.
Annie Letterman?
And that's not a knock on the other comics who aren't getting on those lineups because they're just as good as just what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and maybe you guys will agree with this, but I find like, so in New York, I don't know if it's just a rumor or not, but New York, you can make a living just doing spots, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know dudes that just host and they make a nice living.
Yeah, and out here, you'd be amazed who you could get for $50 on a show.
Dude.
You know?
That was the one thing I remember when I first moved out here. I did a weekend at the Improv, thinking, I was like, they usually like $100 spots or something. The dude handed me an envelope with $7. I was like, excuse me, is this? I think it's a little short. He's like, no, that's what it is. I was like, okay, cool.
$7 for how many spots?
I did like one spot, but he handed me the envelope
Oh,
like
for
there was gonna be something in there. I was like, man, the envelope costs more.
Now here's the best. Here's the best part. Was it a check?
No, it was
actual
two.
cash?
Yeah, it was cash. So I was just like,
5 and 2 ones.
yeah, I was like, what,
Shit.
dude? You could have saved the envelope.
Oh,
This
bro.
nigga handed you Rock's last dollar, the $7.
Dude, the amount of times I've had to cash a check for like $3, and I'm just like, why do I got to do this
That's
at all?
ridiculous.
Now, so you started in New York, right? Eric?
Yeah.
All right, so you started in
New
New York,
York
came
in the
over.
house.
Barry, where'd you start at?
I started here. I started the Comedy Store, no mic, no prep, was looking for a writer's gig in the writer's section of Craigslist and stumbled upon Comedians Paid. I did Michael Q's spot on a Monday night. 8 friends of mine came out like, you're going to bomb. And I was like, probably. Ended up doing well. I became a writer.
Sounds like bad friends. You're gonna suck.
I like literally became a writer after I gave up on football in college. My dad played in the league. It was pretty much like generational athletes in my family. And I walked away, luckily, early on enough to realize that I had way more gifts than just physical ones. And I became a comedian just to become an all-around better writer. My end goal is to be a director of feature films.
Nice.
So this is just a step in a ladder that has a long uphill battle, but I enjoy every single moment of it.
Yeah.
My headliner on that show was Natasha Leggero. She was the female lead in Let's Be Cops. She had a really good roast at Justin Bieber's roast. And she was just a really good person to start off with watching and kind of learning from the other side. I grew up in a family that watched, Mad TV. What was the other one? In Living Color, my dad watched. And I watched a lot of the comedy greats growing up. I never really thought anything of it, but if you're a comedian, you're a comedian from day one. I made my parents laugh after arguments, or my grandmother laugh after she got off the phone with my uncle who was in jail. First time I ever picked up on it was when I was with my girlfriend in high school and a couple of my friends. We went to go see the How High premiere. I don't know if you guys know How High. It was a movie about marijuana.
Red Man,
and Method Man.
Yeah.
Best scene in the movie was when they walk into orientation and they just fucking roast the dean. And after they were done roasting him, I said something just stupid, and it made the entire theater crack the fuck up simultaneously. And I just you don't think about it. So when I stepped on the stage of the store, no mic, no rehearsals, no oh my God. All I had was 6 years of acting as a kid. I did a little bit of childhood acting. I did, some background spots and then some speaking spots, some commercials, an extra Lost Boy and Hook. But you never tie that in together because all that was a blur. You just realize by the time you are where you are, you're meant to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what this has been to me. Because I tried to get out, like he said. And then they brought me back in. So here we are.
That's awesome, man. Eric, when did you start? What was the thing that kind of propelled you? You're like, I need to do comedy, man.
Man, I started, so back when I was in New York, I didn't, growing up, I didn't really know about stand-up comedy. 'Cause you start looking at schools, like my mom's, the typical, I don't want to say stereotype, but it's like that immigrant dream, come to this country, things are going to be better for you guys so you don't have to struggle like I did. So it was like, you're going to college. That was always the thing as growing up. You're going to college. No matter what, you're going to college. I don't care what you're doing. Then you start looking at pamphlets and brochures and stuff like stand-up comedian is not in there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about comedy.
Yeah.
I kind of knew I wanted to perform in some sense because, I know, I did elementary school, middle school plays, but nothing. I never took it too serious of I'm gonna be the dude. Like Shakespeare to me was nah, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to be Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
But I did like messing around and the camaraderie of just hanging out with people and shows.
Yeah.
And then in college, I went to Pace University in downtown, and we were a couple blocks away from the World Trade Center. 9/11 happened.
Jeez.
Our school shut down, and when we get back, things are just chaos. There is soot all over the buildings, people wearing gas masks. You're seeing tanks driving down the street. It's insane. And they're constantly telling us, oh, it's fine, just relax. But you're like, how do you relax when you're watching soldiers in formation walking down right in front of your school? So I remember I was watching the news one night, and they did this whole thing, is it too soon to laugh? And it just happened that people were coming out to comedy clubs. Comedy clubs were over full because people wanted to get away and forget. So I was like, oh, why don't we do a comedy show on campus? Because at that time, a lot of students were feeling uneasy. There was on-site therapists. A lot of people were transferring out. Nobody wanted to be there. So I did this comedy show. I was like, I was part of the student organization. I was like, let's do a small one. It was like a 200-seat room. I was like, let's see what happens. When I tell you 400 people showed up, people standing in the hallways.
Wow.
It was just a thing where people we want to see this. And I just started booking these shows, not realizing that I was slowly just dipping my foot into that pool. And then the comics were like, oh, anytime you want to see a show, come on out. So I started going to shows. And I was watching people, at the time I didn't understand what I was watching, but I was watching people like Mitch Hedberg's. I was watching Greg Giraldo's, David Tell's in their prime. I saw Kevin Hart before he was Kevin Hart. So I was watching comedy at its prime, and I was just I was laughing, and then one day it just all clicked to me, and I was like, oh, I see what he's doing. When you're watching magic, you're like, where's that rabbit?
Yeah.
And it all finally clicked where I was like, okay, he's setting it up there. Here comes the punch. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I want to try this. And a lot of the comics I approached, they were like, yeah, you got to do an open mic, though. You just got to get up and do it.
Yeah.
And that was it. After that, it was no looking back. I did a couple open mics. And then a couple weeks in, I told my mother, I was like, listen, I'm going to stop going to school. Let me try this. If I'm not good at it, I'll come back.
Yeah.
So she was like, all right, that's the deal. If you're not, I'm giving you a year. If you're not good at this, you go back to school. I said, all right, cool. And I've never been mad.
Dude, so what's crazy too is so you started out as like, I don't want to say like a comedy nerd, but like you were so into comedy, like checking out all these different comedians.
Dude, I was going to shows every night, man. Like I'd go to school, after school, boom. What's the first show I can watch? I'd be at Stand Up New York watching shows.
Yeah.
Watching the 7 o'clock show. Then I'd run over to the Strip, watch the 9 o'clock show. And I was just watching dudes like just work material out. And it was funny because then you start seeing them from club to club to club. And that's when I started like realizing, oh, he changed that. He changed that bit. So like I started seeing what it, like the art form of it and how they were tinkering with bits. And then sooner or later, it finally it hit me. I was like, I want to try that.
See, that's what I believe you can grasp 10 times faster in New York than you
Oh
can
yeah,
out
definitely.
here. By the time you realize that is the real magic. That's like the first checkpoint into realizing what the fuck you're doing up there.
Right.
Is that you can actually mold and you can manipulate and you can sort of castrate the audience in a way where they're literally just listening to what you're saying. And now you have the audience, but what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And that's the part that a lot of LA comedians, I feel like, hit a wall and they fall off and they wash out. Whereas New York comedians, when they get to that point, they're like, oh, I'm going to work this out 5 more times tonight.
Right.
And you never seem to hit that dry spell.
Mm-hmm.
Where out here, you might be able to get like the beginning and the inner makings of a joke, but by the time you're done with that, it's the 3 mics in, it's the end of the night, it's already fucking 2 a.m. It's just, yeah, I've always been envious of that because I've never done any comedy in New York.
Oh, it's the best, man. Because, yeah, like you're saying, you get those 10 spots in one night. So by the time you're done that night, you've tinkered a joke. I'm
trying to do Brooklyn's
fleshed
festival
it
next
out.
year.
It's beautiful.
I'm trying to do Brooklyn's comedy festival next year. I'm submitting. And I did, I know the people behind Skankfest, and they're like, yeah, I'm a shoe-in for that. So I'm looking forward to next year going out. Because Brooklyn, I mean, come on, Best Eye and the rest of the, I'm just trying to get out there.
That's why I'm always in awe by the people that start here. Like, because there aren't as
everybody says that.
There's not as many spots.
No, it's not.
And then on top of it is you got all this pressure to not be that weak link in the show. So, like, if you get up at the store or at the Laugh Factory, like, they just saw Dane Cook, D'Elia, Eliza Schlesinger, Whitney Cummings just destroy, and you want to work out this new bit, but you don't want to be the dude to, what the hell's he doing up there?
Yeah.
So it's such a weird. So when I hear people like, oh, I started him, like, that's crazy. How did you do that?
Yeah.
To me, I'm just like, I'm in awe by that because in New York, you can mess around with a bit, be the weakest link, but guess what? In 15 minutes, I'm gonna be on another stage and it's all forgotten.
Yeah, I think that's why comedy over here in LA especially has developed into this DIY culture of like, if you want bookings, you gotta book yourself, bro. Like you gotta get like, for instance, I started out here, right? I've been doing comedy like 4 years. I produce to this day, I produce 8 shows a month, right? So that's 8 shows a month, and then intermixed with like maybe like a club spot here and then, or like doing some independent shows and stuff. But I feel like I don't know how it is in New York, whether there's a lot of people putting on their own shows or.
There are produced shows there. So like you got the main clubs, and then there's like off sites where they'll have like their own produced shows. But the clubs themselves are usually just club shows, unless they have like an extra room or something, or on like an off night. Yeah, like that here, I feel like there's more produced shows because maybe what you're saying, like they're trying to get that stage time. Yeah. So like there are the main shows, and then there's the off sites, and like the different boroughs, Astoria, Brooklyn will have their own shows that you can travel out to. But dude, there's so much stage time out there.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, we're hurting for, and also the opportunities are so far and few between.
Right.
That like you really got to knock it out if you're lucky, like me being in this game, I'm also a podcast producer.
Right.
So I get a lot of those little one-offs of like, oh, you know what? You've helped me out. I'm going to help you. I'm going to throw you a spot. And if you don't crush that spot, you're never going to do that room again.
Oh, yeah. I just did Venice Underground. And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
One of the top shows in LA, if not the top.
It's in the top 5 shows to get a little bit of clout from. If you do a few shows like Hot Tub Time Machine or Hot Tub, is it just Hot Tub?
Yeah, it's not Hot Tub Time Machine. That is a movie with
I literally
Craig
just
Robinson.
watched that movie 3 days ago. I think it's that show, and then there's 2 more shows at the Virgil that are like on point. I think it's, what was the one that everybody talks about? The Mixtape Mondays. That's what's his name show? Damn, I forget.
Sick shout out, bro.
Yeah, I mean, There's 3 shows at the Virgil that are just
I mean,
Golden Hour. That's the one.
Yeah, and it's hard to compete. I did a show the same day as Hot Tub, and I had Kanane on my show, and I was like, you know what? It's a stacked lineup. Like Candace Thompson was booked on it. I was like, it's gonna be a dope show, and I had like 10 people show up with like tons of marketing.
There's the list. It's Hot Tub, New Negroes, Golden Hour, and then it's Good Heroin.
Good Heroin.
Good Heroin's a Checkpoint show, and then it's Venice Underground. Those are the top 5 shows where industry heads will come in. You'll get a good look. Kimmel's guys were at Golden Hour a couple shows ago, and another Secret Underground show that people are getting a little clout from is Frogtown show. Jack Knight's doing this show. These are just shows that I've seen like great crowds, and then also a lot of comedy reps will go out and they'll just pull people to the side and see what they're about. And you know, Venice Underground, it was one of those shows where you could feel the just comedy love and the essence of loving theater and performing, because directly after our show is a burlesque show that I've been hearing about forever, because I know about Jumbo's Clown Room down the street over here, but there's always rumors about this burlesque show out in Venice. So I'm like doing Venice Underground, and literally right after, so you have 2 different crowds there, and everybody's feeling love, and it was just, I was the last person to go up, and it was still a lot of energy in the room. It was just a great show. Shout out to Matt Devlin and Bronston Jones for having me on. Good shit. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, they pack it out every single time. And I, you know, as a guy who's focused a lot on producing, I ask them all the time, "What's your secrets, man?" And when they told me what was up, they're like, "We literally put 1 flyer up for this show." They're like, "That's it." It's just, I mean, it's so crazy. Now, do you guys find that the spots in the city maybe are a little rougher sometimes compared to, like, I don't know how much you guys perform outside of like LA proper, but do you find that like the shows in LA, sometimes you can have a monster lineup that only has 10 people at those shows? Or do you find that you get the right work out of the shows in the city?
I feel like I've done ridiculously better shows outside of the city. But then again, when you do become a part of that West Coast clique, you get introduced to the golden shower shows of this city, where you're doing backyard spots in the Hollywood Hills, you're doing shows in attics, basements, front porches of fucking sorority houses, fraternity houses. And the new thing is, because of the city's environment and the consistency with good weather, backyard shows are blowing up like countywide. It's not even just a city thing anymore.
Yeah.
Seriously. So I've just seen that once you are kind of introduced into the so-called clique, and that's just the shows that people do before they end up in all the clubs. Because you do have to go through a gauntlet of shows where people can get to know you, because I've been booked just because I've done Adam Hunter's The Dime Show. I've been booked on Sauce before it went out, just because Baron Vaughn was like, "Oh, he did my show," and now I'm booked on New Negroes coming up soon. And it's one of those things where, first of all, always put your best foot forward, because you never know who you're talking to. I did a show for a girl, the Friend show out the Friends Bar, hosted by Aaron Alexis. Shout out! And I just saw her. I'm rewatching True Blood, because I love that series on HBO. And then I see her like season 4, episode 2, as like one of the hookers in the like, what? Get the fuck out of here, bitch! You're acting like that. So that was pretty cool. Just, you never know who you're talking to. Never underestimate another person. Just, I don't know, it's the same as sports was, you know, don't fear anybody, but respect everyone, you know, because you just never know. I appreciate the fact that I got introduced to some of the better comedians in LA early on, and they taught me some of the don't do this rules, and one of them is just don't depend on anybody else. Straight up, what you said earlier is literally, you have to be on your grind, but you have to make sure that you're in the lab, though. I mean, and that's where the New York aspect comes from. And everybody's told me, if you want to really take it to the next level, New York and San Francisco is where you shine your boots. That's like where you get your polish on. That's where you get your real grind on. LA is where you come after it's done. So starting out here, for me personally, was just convenience. It wasn't anything besides, like, I never looked at it as intimidating. But I am looking forward to going out to New York. I am a little jealous that you're from New York. I'm not gonna lie, that's the shit.
But I will give you just listening to you talk, you do have something over a lot of New York comics. Because what happens is a lot of New York comics will get stuck in that whole cycle of just doing spots. And I always tell people, and they're like, "Oh, I'm thinking about moving out to LA. LA is bigger picture." And exactly what you said, like, this is just a rung on the ladder because my end goal is this.
Yeah.
Some dudes are so blinded by the spots, they don't see past that.
Oh, yeah. See, first of all, if you're not thinking about this as something bigger than yourself, you're already so one-dimensional, you're going to wash out within 5 years anyway. So our conversation is like, you don't know who Bruce Lee is, we're done talking.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just like there are red flags. And I remember meeting a guy at a party where people were doing so much coke, they were sweating, standing still. And this was a Thanksgiving party, and he was from Canada, and he was just ranting and raving about, I got $7,000, and I came down here from Canada. I was like, bro, you'll be back home in 7 weeks.
Right.
You know, like, this isn't where you come out here with one of those white boy sabbatical mindsets where you're just going to kind of just figure it out. No, you need to come out here with a plan. LA is where you're going to get representation from. This isn't Entourage. A lot of people moved out here after they saw that show, and they thought, like, Turtle was going to find them a good deal. Like, do you have a turtle, first of all? And, like, where's your homie that used to run Sabaros? And if you don't got a manager, forget about it, dude. Like, this is where people figure out what type of hero they want to be, or if they're going to live long enough to become the villain that everybody
everybody's always like, oh, I'm thinking about doing stand-up, I'm thinking about moving out there. I'm like, unless you can show these reps the money or the plan, they're not going to mess with you.
No.
You could be the best stand-up, but if you don't have, like, those money signs like in the cartoons and that rep's eye, it's not going to work. I'm like, so you have to have that. Oh, this is the scripts I'm working on. This is the production thing I'm working on. I want to direct. I want to do this. So then they go, okay, now I've got a product.
I noticed that one of the best things that I picked up on that keeps me going is I know that I'm a part of the quantum thought line. When you start looking and reading and watching things develop, and you see that there are very similar to the things you have under development. So many people are concerned about intellectual properties being stolen. You should take it as a sign of just legendary status when you come out with a product that is very similar to something that's already cracking. When Stan Lee died, I was like, no offense, but now I can push my comic book label forward. Just because now Marvel is going to fall to the backside after everything falls out and the smoke clears. Everybody's going to be ready for a superhero with no fucking costume.
Right.
Some humanized, relatable hero.
Or even if you look at the different platforms, like a Netflix or like, CBS, they can't mess with Marvel, so they're going to be looking for the next.
Well, yeah, Apple TV right now is currently looking for content. I have a pitch meeting with them coming up pretty soon for animation series that I'm working on. I'm working on 3 different cartoons, including the one for Adult Swim. But what I'm getting from Adult Swim is I'm getting an opportunity to sit in a writer's room for the first time, see how things are run, get a gist of it. And a lot of this moving forward is just validation. I just did a 16-hour editing session for my cartoon that I'm working on, me personally. And the guy was like, yeah, have you ever been schooled for this? Because the fuck? Do you want a job? And I'm just like, and that's the other thing that I've noticed is that it is a different sort of feeling when you alter your timeline to the best version of you, and you start to put yourself in the driver's seat of your destiny in terms of, it's not about controlling everything, it's about knowing how to react to blessings, victories, and defeats. And I think that when you're on the right timeline, you talk like this, you move like that, and listening to the goals and the accomplishments that you have and you've already accomplished, it is a breath of fresh air to even be on this podcast with somebody like you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Real talk. Shit keeps on pushing. And also for you, Paul, like, you've seen people grow, and then that's your class. That's your graduating class.
Yeah.
And then that's what keeps you pushing. When I've seen other people, I've heard people talk like, I can't believe they got this spot. Bro,
right.
You're just as good as that person. You're just as there. Be happy that they did it, because that's an introduction to you being able to. You should be introducing your mind that now I'm available to do that.
Right.
I'm capable of it. Embrace it. Don't hate on other people.
That is a very good mindset.
Seriously, though. I look at it as, if they got it, shit. Good for them. But I can do it.
Yeah.
Real talk.
Yeah.
Don't hate, though. That's disgusting.
Dude, it's hard.
It's so disgusting.
I know, but it's so hard for, like, new people to not.
Oh, my God. He nailed it. New. That word,
when
though.
When you've been doing it for a while, you realize,
Oh, yeah.
There's different platforms. They're all looking for content. Like, I I'm always gonna be pigeonholed as a Latino comic because I happen to be Latino. So when I see one hit that victory, I'm excited for them. Like,
of course,
Ida Rodriguez just hit Netflix, and everybody, oh, how she? I'm like, no.
First of all, she's funny.
She's hilarious.
Yeah.
And her winning is opening that door
for you guys. Let's keep it real.
Else. But it's so funny. Those people just hate. They don't see that. Like, they're like, oh, what'd that person do? Or somebody gets a show and they're like, how'd they get? And like, dude, celebrate that person. They're opening a door for us.
And this is what IMDb is for. It's for people like that. Go look up Brad Pitt's. Go look up his filmography and go see what he was doing in 82, 81, 79 before Thelma and Louise was jumping off of fucking mountains. And you'll get a consistency of people were on the grind long before you knew their name was a byline.
Right.
They weren't just miracles. They just didn't just come up in this situation and all of a sudden. Not everybody's Drew Barrymore. Not everybody's just born into it. And even she was talented. But now you have a new dynasty of a new type of version of an industry kid and their ethnics. You got the Smiths. Like you said, you have an entire version of Latinos that are being boosted into the industry, not just on the comedy level, but even on the backside level with production and also just their own channels. And it's opening up a new genre of storytelling. And it's exciting to see the transformation because these old white niggas is getting kicked out. Just saying.
Well, sir, so I do want to say thank you, Eric, because that whole Entrenos, that whole thing is such a boost to
It is.
So I'm first generation American as well. My mom's from Mexico, so to be able to see you guys killing it and be like, oh yeah, those are people that like someone like Orlando, right? Who's like someone I've had conversations with. It's very inspiring because it's like, oh no, you can do it. You can succeed in an industry that typically all the comics in the 90s and the early 2000s all kind of look the same, just a little bit. So thank you for that. And then Barry, it's crazy because Barry has this show called Chocolate Banana. Have you heard of Barry's show?
No, I have not. I'm excited now.
The concept is so cool that when I heard it for the first time, I was like, yo, that's a show. So I'll let Barry explain what Chocolate Banana is.
So Chocolate Banana is a neighborhood comedy show where you have a half black, half Asian comedy show that encapsulates the token spot as just sort of a spoof to what you see in regular everyday comedy shows in Hollywood, half black, half Asian, with a one token spot for every other race. And that's how we run it.
I like it.
Yeah, everybody loves that token spot. It's just people notice that Asians, Latinos, and blacks sometimes are the funniest ones on the bill. Sorry. And it does happen like that. Yeah. And just like you said, you have situations where people are filling up clubs, and it's not like they're not names. For instance, I don't know if you know who George Lopez is.
Yeah,
dude,
from the store.
Oh,
not
the George Lopez.
Yeah.
There's another.
I was gonna say that was a weird statement.
Yeah, y'all know Fluffy. What?
Yeah,
we do.
He's in a developmental spot at the store. Very talented comedian.
I think he needs to change his name.
I mean, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you
gonna do? A lot of disappointed audience.
I mean,
George is here tonight.
I'm just saying.
On stage, Bill Cosby.
Take B out of Michael B. Jordan.
Hey,
that's true.
That's why you had to be strong with that B.
But then if you do like George A. Lopez, it just sounds like George Lopez regular.
That's facts. That's facts.
George A. Lopez.
I mean, he's probably one of the funniest comedians I've seen, besides a few more like Eddie Rodriguez and then your boy who's coming up, Fluffy, obviously. And, these specials that you're seeing now, let's be real, they're kind of trash.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of trash. So when you catch good specials like the ones that you just spoke about that pushed out, and even Joe Coy has a ridiculous. He has two specials that killed.
Yeah.
And then you kind of hear whispers about that, but then you'll go and you'll look at the numbers for.
The dude just added 27 cities, not shows, cities to his tour. But then going back to Barry's original point, where people complain how that dude get that. Joe,
get out of here.
Self-produced.
Yeah, get out of here.
His own special. He went to Netflix. They were like, nope, and he self-produced.
Yeah.
And then sold it to them.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. So all these people complaining oh, how'd that dude get that? Are the same people that won't invest in themselves or believe in their own product to push it.
Yeah. And by the way, Joe Coy will still do drop-in sets at. I saw Joe Coy did a drop-in set in Covina for a room that's,
and that's
doesn't
the
hold that
other
many people.
You know what? And that's the one. I'm glad you guys brought that point up. The humility and the humble integrity that you see with these rising stars is so consistent that if you do not mirror these characteristics, you are shutting doors with your attitude, because you don't know who is interested in you, and you don't know whose interest you might spike in a conversation, but it continues to be an issue with your vibration due to the frequencies you're hitting because your attitude's off.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're spiteful, because this person who you develop faster than, well, maybe because the universe is conspiring for a new blessing for you that has nothing to do with entertainment, but it's going to shoot you into a position where now you have your own channel or your own network.
Yeah.
You just got to be patient and, realize that all these people work. So if you're working hard, let that be your anchor of faith. Let that be like, oh my God. I heard somebody else complaining like, oh, do you think this comedian's funny? Well, I mean, regardless, how many motherfuckers have you seen pass that aren't? And that are getting commercial spots? Good for them. Maybe their journey ends in being a production for NBC. Why are you so interested in where their destiny lies? Let their victory be a validation of your placement in this.
Right.
Yeah.
And just keep it pushing. And it's so nice to see individuals that are so thankful, and they all are so humble. You meet them, they're so happy. They are content with where they are, but they also have the grind with them and to keep striving for more.
Yeah.
They don't even bother themselves with these questions and these worries and these scenarios and these subjects. They don't talk. It's like listening to a conversation in coach and then in first class. They're just different conversations.
Right. Yeah.
You feel me? So
I like that you brought up attitude, right? Because attitude's such a big thing. And tell me if you guys agree with this. Like I said, I'm early in. I'm only 4 years in. But the two biggest gatekeepers that I've encountered were other open micers and, like, struggling headliners. Those were the only two people that have actively tried to stand in my way.
Facts.
Just because, I know that they're having a hard time doing it. But whenever I've been lucky enough to meet, some of these bigger headliners, they've been nothing but nice.
Right.
It's so crazy how your mindset can kind of determine where, your position is and the opportunities that are getting presented to you.
I agree.
Yeah.
I freaking totally agree.
So I don't know. Have you guys ever had a moment where somebody actively tried to get in your way?
Oh, absolutely. I got heckled at a show in downtown. I'm not going to call out any names. I'm just going to say who was on the show with me.
Dave Chappelle.
It was the first 1%er show I'd ever done. And then when you find out the guy that's heckling you is a millionaire and he was the one who puts on the show, you're still like, fuck your life. But at the same time, you learn humility. You learn more from bombing than you do anywhere else. And anytime I was on the show with Frank Castillo and a couple other Comedy Store regulars, and it was like the guy came after each comedian. He came after me like, why are you standing like that? You look like a retard. Like, he was already...
Damn, Brian Regan. Why you do like that, yo? Damn. Come on.
And then you start going in on him and the crowd's on his side. You're like, am I in the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
You're like, what in the holy fuck? It was the first time I've ever wanted to wrap a mic cord around somebody in real life. And it was cool because Frank was there and just like, dude, never expect to do better than what the room is already doing.
Yeah.
If you're in a room and it's a whole bunch of killers and they're getting mediocre laughs and responses from the fucking crowd, then get up there. At best, that's what you're going to get. To expect more is, come on, you're going to be digging. And that's when you start. That's when the fasting, you fast too long. Now you're eating away at your stomach. Eat something. You know what I mean? Like, get some nourishment.
Right.
Yeah. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I've had comics, like they'll, I'm gonna reach out to so and so, and they never do
Oh,
because
my
it's that my mentality, And then I've had people like when I first moved out here, and I'll name them. Everyone has is Tommy over at the store.
Yeah.
Just a dick, dude.
Damn.
Like, ready?
Front Street.
I went a couple times with headliners from New York. They were now here. And they were like, "Oh, throw him on," and he just kept like, "Nah, you gotta hang out." He gave me the whole spiel, and I get it. Like there's a process to it, and I was like, "All right, cool." And I tried to do the hangout thing, but you like legit had to be his friend, and I was like, "I don't want to be your friend, man. Can you just watch me real quick and give me the yay and nay?" And then the final attempt I had with him was it was the night before I'm filming the Tonight Show. So I'm on the show.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm doing the spot. I went up to him. I was like, "Hey man, is it cool if if you could throw me the 4.5, it's timed out. You don't even have to light me. This is the set. And my man was like, well, all these people on this lineup have already been on TV. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's tomorrow. I'm doing it tomorrow. Yeah. And I was just like, he's a dick. Like, it was just his power trip of I'm not going to let this happen. I was like, man, whatever.
Yeah. That's crazy. The amount of comics that were so happy after, after he dipped out. And I mean, I've heard some stories that's like, Jesus Christ, how can a manager or like a GM be acting that way toward? But I feel like that's every club. You know? If
there's always that guy that has that power, because it happened a couple times in New York. Like when I was coming up, there was this manager, and he would like, hey, can you help me book these shows? And I'm like, yeah, sure, but don't book that dude. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you have a beef with this dude for? He's like me. He's hungry, trying to get stage time. It just becomes a power trip of, I'm the gatekeeper to this.
He's so right.
And it's like, why?
He's so right.
Why?
Oh, man.
He's so right. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of just, I've had, dude. I had to just the grace in which you talked about and delivered that, I could tell, it was a comma in there or a period in there was a trigger for you. And you had a flash flood of emotions, and I felt that. Because I remember the first time I got hated on, and I really didn't even understand that I was worth being hated on. And that was the humility that I needed to understand, and that person was just like, whoa, why are you even? I haven't even. What are you doing? And what you face in situations like that is just people projecting their own personal fucking fears on you. And they're not really good comedians. They're producing shows, and they're getting a great turnout, and they don't realize that, you're probably going to be a great producer for a show like, I don't know, America's Got Talent, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Maybe you got a good rant. See, there's a difference between funny people and comedians.
Yeah.
Funny people can go to a party and say some dumb shit, and people can laugh. And then comedians, they can make people laugh in a conversation 24/7. And I'm talking about when you're bombing. See, bombing with grace is when you can deliberately make fun of your self-deprecation and crush. Mm-hmm. And you can reverse a set. But that's not your purpose. Chasing laughs, that's an amateur's game. And when you see that with these producers, they just want people who are either somehow interconnected, but you have to understand all of this is finite. Nobody really cares. You need to be a deeper person in order to get what you want out of this industry. You have to see past the industry standards. You have to see past all of the fucking credits, and you have to see the person inside. And that's where a lot of these producers are losing their gusto. That's why they're booking rooms, and then they sit there and they're like, oh my God, they filled it up. Well, these new comedians, they got 30 real followers. Mm-hmm. They got 50 homies that really want to see them rise. Mm-hmm. These motherfuckers that have been running these Las Vegas shows, their friends are like, they were nomad. Nobody knows them. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And social media credit don't matter, because who are you really? Right. We don't want to see your highlight reel. What you going to do? Every 7 seconds, you're going to turn into a different person in front of me? Fuck out of here, dude.
That's so funny, dude. Oh, no, I agree 100%. It's crazy, like, the people. So, I mean, a good producer can just look past the bomb, right? Mm-hmm. They could look past, they could kind of.
Agreed.
They could pick up on that. They could see who's, like, I fancy myself a producer that, I try to give opportunities to people that don't get opportunities, because I realize that down the road, that's going to be more beneficial for everybody involved. If I could give somebody their first paid spot, yeah, they might pack out the room, which is always a great point, but they're always going to have that in their mind. Like, oh yeah, this was a dude that really took a chance on me and gave me a spot where nobody else wanted to give me a spot. So it's cool to see those people like existing in the industry. And on the back end, it's weird to see. I remember I heard a story of, and this isn't about bad producers, but this is just about like kind of the direction the comedy's going, where, you have a lot of like gimmicky shows kind of going out now where the show isn't just traditional stand-up. It's just, kind of gimmicks going on. So I'm not going to say what club it was at, but I remember it was a club that had a couple rooms, and they're doing kind of like gimmicky shows in every room. And Bill Burr showed up, right? So Bill Burr goes up to the GM and is like, yo, like, where can I go up? And they were like, well, we have this game show here and this game show here. So if you want to go up, you kind of have to, like, they were kind of trying to like that. And he said, I can't even get up here. And then he just went to the other major club to go do a drop-in set, So it's weird to see how everything's kind of changing and how people are valuing their rooms as like, it's like gold. People are like, oh, this is gold. But then you realize, do you guys follow Stand Up Batman?
No.
Have you seen him on Twitter?
Mm-mm.
Stand Up Batman. All right, so Stand Up Batman is a comic who's like unnamed in the industry who basically attacks other comics, but it's like under the guise of like Stand Up Batman. So they're tweeting like mad shit about comics,
Right.
but they're in the industry. People just don't know who they are. But this, now I'm like losing my point. It just completely left. Stand Up Batman said, man, what did he say? He said something about, God damn it, no, I forgot. Whatever, I'll take this part out. There's a whole point. There's a whole point in it that clicked, and now it's
If I can just interject real quick to get back to something that I kind of fucked up on earlier.
Yeah.
Shout out to my homeboy George Perez, not George Lopez.
I know George
George
Perez.
You fool.
My nigga was in the
I was
back
like,
of
whose name is George Lopez?
This is my homeboy right here. You know George.
I know George,
Come
yeah.
on. Yeah, George Perez. We were in the back of the store like a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and he had some Tupac socks on. You know the new socks? They're like these.
Yeah,
and
I've
he was
seen those. I
he-
almost got them for my kid. They had Tupac and Biggie. I was going to get them both.
Oh my! So he's telling me that he has this whole collection of fucking socks. They're all themed socks. And I was like, yeah, I got the Cheech and Chong socks. He's like, I got like 10 pairs of the Cheech and Chong socks. And I'm just like, what the hell? And his homeboy's like, oh my God, like 500 pairs of socks. So I didn't even know that there's like some sock culture going on.
That's
I just put that shit
what I
together.
love about comedians. We're still at heart big kids. Like the fact that he saw Tupac socks, he's like, I need like 9 pairs of those.
With the bandana connected to the socks. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it, bro.
Bro.
Shout out to George
George
Perez.
Perez.
Ah!
He almost did it again, dude.
Almost did it again.
By the way, Eric, I have a question, right? Since Barry was so kind enough to bring up George Lopez.
Yeah.
So George Lopez is famous for kind of being like, he's a Latino comic that doesn't really work with other Latino comics.
Right.
You know? Have you experienced that in the industry where you kind of
Man, you trying to throw me under the bus here.
Hey, I'm trying to get
Hey.
the scoop.
I'm going to tell you this. Look, you see the community when somebody's really genuinely trying to help. Like, you'll look at a dude like, Kevin Hart, who genuinely helps other comics, giving them specials. A good friend of mine, Keith Robinson, had a special that was on Comedy Central. Now it's on Netflix. Back at the Buzz Funny, that was Kevin Hart's doing. So you see guys like that who throw the rope back. Tiffany Haddish threw the rope back to April Macy, Ida Rodriguez, Shantae Wayans, because that's what the community does. Like, we're trying to help out. You look at George Lopez. How many specials you seen produced by George Lopez?
Yeah.
For Latino comedian. And look, I don't know what he went through. I've read his books where he's gone through abuse and stuff. I'm not making excuses for him. Like, maybe that's his thing, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I like how he's kind of becoming the Eric Estrada that burned him early on, right?
He's got the power to be those dudes that I've named off, the Tiffany and the Kevins, but he just chooses not to, and I don't know what it is or why, but
I mean, he is the biggest Latino comic.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
It's
and
hard to
he
argue.
could easily do a George Lopez Presents tour and have the
Yeah.
next up and coming class, the Jesus Trejos, the Orlando Labas,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Like, he could do that.
Yeah.
Why is he not? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a
man.
really fucking important question. I think that sometimes people tell themselves that if I could do it, they'll be able to do it better. They had more. When you put other people before you and the picture gets broader than just your vision,
Right.
the types of doorways you open up new generations of doorways, and you start asking questions that you never even knew existed. So, I mean, just tip your hats off to the ones who kicked down the door.
Yeah, he kicked the door down. I thank you for that.
And
But
nobody got to throw the baton back, but it would have been nice if we would have passed it back so
Yeah.
we could have kept lapping these motherfuckers.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
no, sometimes people just got caught up. What
Yeah.
you going to do?
Yeah. And
But
shout out to the Fluffies and the Felipe Esparzas that have,
yeah,
you know.
they're doing it, and like even a guy like Bill Burr, who has no skin in the game. He just produced Joey Villagomez from Chicago, who's a dude that I've met a couple times in Chicago. Very funny dude, and Bill's produced. I think it's like a new thing they're doing on Comedy Central. I'm like, nice.
Yeah.
I love that this white redheaded dude is doing it for us. Good, thank you, Bill.
Exactly. Well, guys, we're getting towards the end of the show. I want to thank you guys so much for being on. As we get to the end, we like to do a quick fire question round.
All right.
So this is something that just say whatever comes to your guys' mind. But like Ron G says on the early episodes, there's no small talk over here, so these questions are a little bit deeper. So, all right, here's the first question: if you were in a comic, what would your career be?
Dude, I've asked myself this 100 times. There's been times, and I'll be blunt with you. I've thought about quitting, and I've sat in front of my computer like, what else could I do? There ain't shit I could
That
do.
shit's easy for me.
What is it?
Astronaut. Facts. Astronaut. Strong. I'd be up there. Thoughts. All that. Watching the Earth rotate. Thinking about taking a shit and throwing it down on somebody. All that good stuff.
You're already high enough sometimes.
You feel me? You feel me on this?
You're already up there.
If the only astronaut not coming back, like, where is Barry? He was supposed to be back days ago.
This is my study on getting faded on the moon. All right, here's the next question. What smell reminds you of home?
Wow. Banana cake.
I would say like fried plantains or like legit like rice and beans. Now I'm not talking about like Chipotle rice and beans. Like I don't walk in there and go, oh, I'm home. Like old school. Like my mom used to cook all the time, so something like that would take me back.
Yeah.
Banana bread.
You gotta boil them for hours, man. You gotta make them the legit way. All right, if you could get coffee with somebody alive or dead, who would it be?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one.
And don't say alive because somebody said alive.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
For me, damn. You know what? I would have to go with somebody who's alive. It's Leguizamo, because that's the dude that inspired me from Jump, and he's a dude that I still like to this day. I feel is so underrated, not just in comedy, like as an actor. Like all the roles he's taking on, I'm like, this dude's amazing.
Yeah, I just saw today. I forgot on what website, but it had like the top 10 Latino comics in the game right now.
Oh, on USA Today.
Yeah, I probably saw like Angela was like up there.
Angela Johnson,
but Leguizamo, I was like, oh yeah, like, and
but he's not a stand-up though.
He's not a stand-up.
I always love those articles because they don't know the next generation. They're like Leguizamo.
Well, it is funny because they said they had Fluffy on there, and they're like the next generation Fluffy. I'm like, what? Where have you been?
Like, that dude's been selling out arenas for years.
I know. He came up with the same time as
If
Kevin
you would have
Hart.
said, who would you smoke a blunt with, I would have said Denzel Washington.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Coffee, blunts, just two different.
It's two different
modes.
mindsets. I like it.
Come on now.
All right, and I got one more question for you guys, and this is my favorite question to ask. If you could go back in time and give barely starting out you in comedy a piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Ooh.
This is for the younger kids.
Ooh.
Well, you know what's funny? Let me go first because I feel like yours is gonna be
No, please.
with
Go.
Denzel Washington on the moon.
Denzel on the moon.
Go for it.
I've had this version of a question thrown at me because I've got two kids, and they always ask me, "Hey, if your kid thought about going into stand-up, what would you tell him?" And going back in time and telling myself the same thing, I would tell them, take these college courses in marketing, business courses, writing courses, because those are the tools you're going to need, you know, because stand-up is stand-up. Stand-up is a beautiful thing. You can't teach funny. But if you know this other shit and realize that comedy is not just about comedy, it's the business of it, like we were saying before, like if you can give these reps a reason to see the money, then you're ahead of the game. So if you take these writing courses or directing courses or business classes and you know how the business works, you're going to be miles ahead already of everyone else. You know?
And if you could make a nice looking flyer, because that is the thing that is lacking out here.
Mine is a bit more bullet point like. If you have to ask for it, learn how to do it yourself. If you want more, stop talking about it, just do it. And if you are in self-doubt or if you have any insecurities, think about the hardest part of your life, cling to it, and let that push you through any hard moments that you will face. That's it.
Oh, yeah, bro.
If
Just
there's no
straight up.
inspirational music behind that, you have failed as a producer. God.
Note to self, add clapping in the beginning. Well, thank you guys so much for being here on the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. Let's go ahead and give them your social media handles.
No.
Dingleberry Keith Co. at Instagram. And you talk way too much with the number 2 for Twitter. And Cali Fresh 1013 for Snapchat.
All right. Erik Rivera Comedy, ERIK Rivera Comedy on Instagram and Facebook, and Erik Rivera on Twitter.
Dope. Well, I want to thank you guys one more time. This has been the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. For more information on some live shows, check out our website, comedypopupla.com, and check out all the other podcasts on the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast Network. I've been your host, Paul Antonio. You can follow me at the Paul Antonio. And have a good day, guys.
Hey.